All right, hello everyone. So right now we're looking at the Photoshop welcome screen. So this is what you should see when you open Adobe Photoshop, though it might look slightly different depending on your version and depending on the settings you have for the background color. But this is it. Right now I disabled Adobe Cloud, so I am not using any cloud documents, but this area should show some of your recent documents if you have any. You'll notice here some buttons on your left to create a new document or to open a document. So these buttons are great. They offer quick shortcuts, but I always like to show where you will find things in the menus on top. So if you have a look at the top of your window, so on a Mac, the bar is visible up here at the top of the screen, and it will always be there. However, if you're on a PC, these menus are usually docked inside the active window. So you have to take note if you're on a Mac, it's quite simple. It's always on the top of the screen. On a PC, it's going to be at the top of the active window. So these buttons to create a new document or to open a document can be found in the File menu. I like showing the menus because it shows the full set of possibilities of what you can do within the software. So in this case, with the File menu, you see we have all the options for dealing with files. So we don't need to look at all of these yet, but the things here at the top are what we will look at today. So first of all, the first two, new and open. So those are the same things that we saw over there with the quick shortcut buttons, and basically two different ways to access documents. So if you're going to create a new document from scratch, then you'll obviously choose File New. But if you want to open a document that you've been working on previously, or one of my exercise files that you download, you're going to go to Open. So first, let's have a look at the New option. So click on File, New, and then you have this complicated little dialog window here with lots of options that you could choose. So we're not going to get too deep into this today, but I will give you a quick overview, and it's something that I will keep reminding you over the coming few lessons because this is something you're going to do often, and understanding these settings becomes super helpful down the road for understanding how Photoshop works, how saving files works, and how exporting images works. So let's have a look here. We're looking at, in this area, we're looking at templates. So these are presets uh, that come ready-made for typical sizes and resolutions that you might be working on. So I have my recent templates over here, but you can click on any of these tabs to see some of the templates or presets that Photoshop offers. So I'm going to go, for example, for print, and you'll notice the settings change. It gives you certain settings, and you might have noticed the numbers over here change. So here on the left is where you will choose a preset, but here on the right is where you can actually customize the values. So what you'll see here for print, I selected letter, and this is saying 8.5 inches by 11. So that's the size of a typical piece of paper, the letter format. And you'll notice the resolution here is 300. So that's a high resolution document, 300 pixels per inch. If I were to switch to web, however, you'll see the numbers change again. This is the most common according to Photoshop, and you'll see the dimensions are 1366 pixels by 768. So that's the width and the height, and the units have changed. No longer working in inches, we're working in pixels. So the units inside Photoshop are actually quite important, and they really change the size of the document, and they affect something called the resolution. So this resolution, we're not going to go into too much detail today, but just imagine, what it means. Resolution, the higher resolution you have, the more pixels, the more data you have to work with. So at print, we had 300 pixels per inch, but now we're working in a web template, and web doesn't require that high of a resolution. So that's why the default here is 72 pixels per inch, which is lower than print, and it will create a smaller document. So for our purposes, let's go ahead and customize a new document, and we'll just put in 1,000 for the width and 1,000 for the height. So since I'm working in pixels, what this means is my document will have a canvas that has 1,000 pixels side by side, and then 1,000 pixels up to down. So it's creating a square canvas with this many pixels inside it, and it's a low resolution. So if we were to think about a real world unit of inches, this is the resolution we use to switch between them. Put that conversation on hold for now. We don't need to understand it now. Just keep in mind that we're going to work for most of this course in pixels and with a low resolution of 72 pixels per inch. Why 72? It's just the convention. There's no real reason. Uh, it's just the number that has become the standard for low resolution web files in the past. And though things have been changing, this is the number we're going to stick to for now. As for the color mode and bit depth, background content, all this stuff down here, let's just ignore it for now. The area I want you to become familiar with is over here. And two other quick notes. One is this thing called artboards. So to make things simpler for now, we're going to turn off artboards. So I would turn off artboards just to ensure that there's no check mark there. And the second thing you have to be very careful of is the units. Okay, so say I were to ask you to make a document that's 1,000 by 1,000, but your units are wrong, this will be something cause lots of problems in your computer. Think about it. So 1 pixel is a tiny little dot on your screen, but how big is 1 inch? 1 inch is actually a lot bigger. Lots of pixels fit in an inch. In fact, with this resolution, 72 pixels fit in 1 inch. So if you accidentally were set to inches, and then you go ahead and type 1000 by 1000, thinking that's the correct dimensions you want, and then you realize, oh, I'm in inches. That's not what I want. So you quickly switch it to pixels, and look what happened. The dimensions have changed because it's taking your width and height that were in inches and converting them now to pixels. And I asked you for 1,000 by 1,000. However, what you see here is 72,000. So that's way larger. Okay, and this could cause problems for your computer depending on how powerful your computer is. Maybe it could handle large size documents like this, but typically it's going to create lots of problems if you create a document that's just massive. Okay, so be very careful when you're creating your documents. Number one, choose your units. So pixels, and then we come in here and we put the dimensions that we want. So I'm going to put 1,000 by 1,000, and we should be good to go. So when you're ready, you can click that Create button. All right, so it created a new document, and my Photoshop workspace is set up over here. Don't worry too much about the panels and all the things you're seeing right now. There's a lot, and we will get through it. For now, I just want to focus on creating files, saving files, closing files, and opening files. So saving files, it's a pretty fundamental thing when you're working in any software on the computer. So learn it once now, and you'll be good for the rest of your life using computers, okay? So again, I point us to the File menu, and we just scroll down here to see Save and Save As, okay? So if you have already worked on this document and saved it, this Save button over here wouldn't be grayed out. It is grayed out now because we've never saved it before. So this file doesn't actually exist anywhere yet on our computer. It's not saved to the hard drive. What that means is just in this temporary location and it's waiting for you to save it. So if the power were to go out right now, there's a good chance we would lose this file. So it's very important to save your work. And the first time you're going to save your file, the only option you have is Save As. Okay, so Save As, you're telling the computer what file name to give it and where on the computer to save it. So this is your only choice for the first time when you're creating a file. So I'm going to click on File, Save As, and you're going to have to start getting comfortable with where you're saving files on your computer. So me on my Mac, you have this option, quick sidebar here on the side, and I'm going to go to my tab folder that I've created for this stuff, and I'm just going to save it in the tab folder and call it demo1. So you saw what happened up here. I just typed into the file name area, I typed demo, and very important, don't touch the extension. Okay, keep the .psd file extension like it is. This is telling the computer that this is a Photoshop file. That's what .psd is. So if you ever open this file on your computer in another way, it's going to automatically open Photoshop. So change the file name to whatever you want, but keep the file extension as is. You could double check here that the format is Photoshop, but this should be the default when you're creating a new document. And all this stuff here you can just ignore, and that's pretty much it. So you need to remember where on your computer you're saving your files and give things a memorable name so it's meaningful to you, and don't touch the file extension. So what I suggest for you actually is for every one of your courses, you should start getting organized. So on your computer, you should have maybe a TAV College folder, and inside that folder, you'll create more folders for each of your individual classes. So for this class, I would call it Digital Art, and then you could keep all your files for this class into that folder. So when you're ready, you can click the Save button, and there we go. So what you might have noticed now is this tab here on the top left, the name changed. It went from untitled to demo.psd. So it is telling me now that this file has a name and it is actually saved on the computer. So I could go ahead and do something. Don't worry about what I'm doing. I just want to show you how to save after you've made changes. So I just took the brush and made a little squiggle. And now when I go to the File menu, well, first of all, I want you to notice, do you see that little star over here in the tab? So in this tab over here now, the star is telling me that there have been unsaved changes to this file. So let's go to the File menu, and I'm going to click Save now. You see how this option has been enabled? Now this option simply resaves the file where it is with the current file name. So I just go File, Save. It glitched for a moment because it was working, and then the star disappeared, and now we know that the file is saved. Okay, so when you go to save a file that already exists, you're going to stick to that Save button. From now on, the Save As button kind of allows you to save the file with a new name in a new location. So you don't need to do that. We only use Save As the first time creating the file, or if you ever for some reason want to make a copy of that file in another location. All right, so closing files. File, we have two options here for closing, close and close all. So close all will close all the active documents. Right now there's only one, but I'm going to show you file close and click on close and gone. Okay, so that's the basics of creating a new file, saving the file, and then closing the file. Now let's have a look at opening files. So to open your files, there are many ways. You can simply double click on the file in your Finder on the Mac or on the Windows Explorer on a PC. So I could show you that quickly by going to my Finder. Going to the Documents folder. Sorry, I went to the Tab folder where I saved the file, and I see it right here, demo.psd. So that's one simple way to open your files, is just double click on the Photoshop file, and it should open inside Photoshop. Let me just close that. The way I actually prefer and like sharing with you guys is again with the menu. So you do have these quick buttons here to create or open, but again, I divert your attention to the File menu and Open. What's great about this menu, these menus as well, is you have these shortcuts here on the side. So you can see what the keyboard shortcuts are for each action. So if you're into keyboard shortcuts, if you like to speed up your workflow and work faster and more efficiently, you can start learning the keyboard shortcuts for the actions that you use quite often. So for now, I'm just going to click on File, Open, and that's going to open the Finder on a Mac or your Explorer on the PC. And you can simply browse to the folder where your file is saved, click on the file, and click on Open over here. So again, you can make your changes to the work, and if you want to close it, go ahead and close it. You see, but this time, because I didn't save the unsaved changes, it's going to pop up this window saying are you sure you want to close? And it gives you the option to save the changes or to not save the changes. So I'm going to click save, and then the document will be closed. So that's the basics for opening and closing files, saving files. And the last thing I want to mention is my exercise files. So you will be accessing exercises in my course. These are practice exercises to help you learn the material and go through some creative challenges. So I'm going to show you that some of the exercises, like these two here, the brush and the tic-tac-toe, those you're going to create new files. However, this one here, 1C, the paint bucket, okay, so this one comes with an exercise file. So you see it says download one of the exercise files. So in this particular exercise, I give you the option to choose one of two options. I'm going to go with the mandala. So I'm going to click on this link, and that takes me to a preview of the document. And then you'll have to download it. So the download button is right here. You click on that, and it's going to save to your default location. For me, my default location is on the desktop. For you, it's probably your downloads folder or somewhere else that you specified in your web browser. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop now and go File, Open. And like I said, my default downloads go to my desktop, and I see it right here, Exercise Coloring Mandala. So I'm going to click on it and click Open, and there we go. So this is the exercise file for exercise 1C, and you'll see you do not have to create a file from scratch. Rather, you would download an exercise file from my instructions to work with. So just keep that in mind. Some exercises do not have an exercise file, and some do. So this exercise that does have one, you're going to see a download link in the instructions, whereas an exercise that does not have an exercise file, it's going to ask you to create a new Photoshop file. So for example, with this exercise on the brush tool, you're going to want to look in this area for the specifications that I'm asking for. So I tell you the width I want, the height I want, the units, and the resolution. Okay, so just to recap for this exercise, I want 72 pixels per inch in pixels and 1600 by 1200. So just to recap, we're going to go File, New. First thing, check that we're working in the correct units. Then I'm going to change the width 1600 and 1200. There are no artboards in these exercises for the time being, so turn off artboards. Make sure there's no check mark there, and just double check that your resolution is correct at 72 pixels per inch. Okay, so we're not really going to use the templates for a long time because I want you to start getting familiar with this panel here on the side to create your own settings and your own documents with their own sizes and their own resolution. I'm going to click Create, and voila. So I now have this Untitled 1 file open over here. It's not saved yet. Go ahead and save your work. File, Save As, because it's the first time. And you should keep yourself organized by saving files with the name of the exercise. So I'm going to go exercise 1A, brush. Start the habit of getting organized from the beginning. You do it once and then you're good forever. Okay, so start developing these good habits of naming your files and saving your files and staying organized, and it will really help you down the road to work without any issues. All right, so I'm going to click Save. Whoop, that's my desktop. I'm going to go back to my tab folder for now and click Save. Okay, so that's it for this introduction. Stay tuned for the upcoming video, which will be going over the basics of the Photoshop interface.